Hello, this is Leslie Lefebvre with some tips for how you can prepare for a radio or podcast interview. Now, sometimes it's a live-to-air program. Sometimes there's a bit of a delay, usually a 1 or 2 or 3 second delay, and sometimes it's being pre-recorded. Now, for the pre-recorded shows, depending on the production quality of the producer who's putting the podcast or radio program together, they may be able to clip out certain parts where mistakes happen. But assuming that it's a live broadcast, here are a few things you need to make sure you have ready as you're preparing for this interview. Well, the first thing is you want to make sure you're in a room that can be closed off and you've alerted your family members or roommates that this is going on. You've also turned off, if there's a phone in the room, you've turned it off, you've turned it to mute or to airplane mode in the case of electronic devices, and you're in a space where you're not going to be disturbed for the duration of the interview. Now, a couple other things that you need to do is, if it's being done through a computer, you want to make sure you have a decent microphone for your computer. You can get a decent microphone anywhere from $40 to $150. You can actually spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars, but I typically use a headset, which is basically a $40 headset that has a really decent microphone built into it, and it also has a very handy mute button. And that's the other thing you need to be prepared with. A couple times I've been doing the interviews with my iPhone. That's my main phone that I use, and I basically use the headset so that I'm not getting any feedback from the other end of things, and it's got the handy mute button right built into there, or you've got a mute button on your phone, on your desk phone if that's possible, or on your computer. That's really, really important. Why is a mute button important? Well, if you need to clear your voice, you need to cough, or, God forbid something happens and somebody barges into the room, or one of the pets that you have starts doing the things that pets do when you're doing a video. So that's really, really important. Another important thing that you want to make sure is you have a nice glass of water nearby so you can take a sip. You can, keep your throat lubricated. This is particularly important for those longer interviews, and sometimes even on a short radio interview, if you're not used to doing it, you'll find your mouth gets dry really, really quickly and easily. So that having that water handy is very, very helpful. You may want to have some paper. You may want to have some notes written down. You may want to have a handy pen so you can actually clip down some ideas that come to you during the course of the conversation. And then, of course, if you're referring to, I was recently on a radio interview where I was talking about my latest book, co-authored with Rhonda Parrish, Haunted Hospitals, and I had it handy with a few bookmark sections for spots that the host had requested that I talk about. And again, this is because the book was published last year and written the year before, so there's a lot of details in it that I may not necessarily have at the top of my mind, names, dates, specific places, etc., and that's really, really handy. You may also have other resources available like that. And then I think one of the interesting things that you should consider is, what format is this interview? Is this going to be a short news clip for a radio program where they're just looking for really short, quick, solid sound bites? Or, like in the case of the interview I just did recently, is it going to be an hour-long program where when the host asks you a question, they don't want you to just respond with, yes, that's right. They want you to get into the details and actually tell an interesting story. So knowing that in advance what's expected of you as a guest on this radio interview or podcast, you'll be able to prepare yourself to give them what they're looking for so you can be a fantastic guest. I hope you found these tips helpful. Best of luck in your next radio or podcast interview.